So welcome to the Black Hat Europe NOC report. Who are we? So my name is Neil Wyler, but everybody in the information security community calls me Grifter. By day, I am the global lead of active threat assessments for IBM X-Force. And then by night, I do this. I've been running the technical operations for the Black Hat security briefings for the last 21 years. I know you're looking at me and you're like, but you're so young and you look so
Nobody said
supple. Shut up, let me have it. But yeah, it's here. Shut up. But yeah, so I do this. I'm also one of the main organizers of DEF CON, so I'm a DEF CON goon. I run all the contests and events there. I've written a few books about security. I speak at conferences all over the world. And those things may sound braggadocious, but in reality, it's just my way of saying, like, I love security, I love this. I know people tell me I should have some kind of other hobby, because it's not supposed to be healthy if you do your job and your hobby are the same thing, but I guess I'm not
It is
healthy.
very braggadocious, though, because he always makes me go second. I'm
Go
Bart
ahead.
Stump. This is what I do about 15 years-ish now. We lose count, 15, 16, somewhere in there. I am a principal field solutions architect for CDW. I actually retired from the DEF CON side because now they let me in for free, so I said that's enough. And done a few other things around my time, but no books, not as cool as him. It is very braggadocious.
I like that you can't talk about the DEF CON stuff.
I
now,
try.
'cause
I don't.
crazy.
I
After
can't
10
now.
years, he just gave up on it.
I'm done.
All right, but we don't do this alone. This is the team. This is the folks who are in there helping us run the NOC. You'll notice that I keep calling it a NOC. It is a NOC. We replace every router, switch, firewall, access point in the venue. We don't actually take them away and put them somewhere, but we use our own stuff. So we are a network operations center as well as a SOC. We have all of the pieces of technology in there, and we'll get into what those pieces are here momentarily. But yeah, that's the team. What a good-looking bunch. Look at how everyone's wearing black except for that one.
Why do you
cool
say
box
that
in
and then
the
there's
middle.
two
Oh, it's
nerds
fine. I
at
guess
the end?
Dustin. Hey, Dark Matter's kind of got black on. I'm going to wear red on picture day.
NOC partners. So we definitely don't do this alone. That's the team. That is a mix of a few of our guys that we bring with. Principal architect Steve Fink, James Pope, Mike Spicer help us out. They're much more famous than us. And then all the other people are our NOC partners. We do emphasize the word partner, and the reason that they're here, work with us, provide really smart people and equipment. It is not a sponsorship. They're not paid to be in there, by us, at least.
We're not paid. Nobody gives us anything.
So we'll go through that real quick. NetWitness, Cisco, Corelight, Palo Alto, Arista. They all kind of do their jobs. Arista Wireless and Wired. Palo Alto Firewalls. Corelight is our network analytics detection. Cisco provides a whole bunch of stuff. MDM, malware analysis, and DNS with Umbrella. And then NetWitness provides threat detection, response, and identity.
I know we have a whole thing where we talk about the evolution of the NOC, but I will say also there has been an evolution as far as the partnership goes. When Bart and I initially first decided that we were going to bring vendors into the NOC, at the time we were running everything ourselves. We were doing open source solutions. We were putting PF on Socris boxes and deploying to every classroom and trying to figure out what parts of the network were alive. And we kept it going just with sheer willpower, honestly. And when we brought vendors in, we didn't expect that we would get people to come along with the equipment. And then they were like, hey, can we send folks with you just to make sure that the gear functions or help you administer it or whatever? And we were like, yeah, that'd be great. And initially that's what we got. And we had folks who would come and help us make sure that the setup of it went well. But then over time, over the years, because now it's probably about 8 years that we've been using partners in the NOC, they started to adapt who they were sending and we were requesting, which was folks who could come in and help us essentially hunt, right? Like the equipment is great, but it's not worth anything without people behind it who know how to use it and use it effectively and find things that are actionable out on the network. And so they started sending us people who could really effectively use the tools. And that's been spectacular. So when you look through the glass in there, if you were in the NOC at any point this week, and you see all the folks sitting there, most of them are doing some type of threat hunting because this NOC is an interesting setup. We say this at every one of these types of briefings, but where in most environments, if you're doing security, you're looking for a needle in a haystack. Here at Black Hat, we're looking for a needle in a needle stack because the types of traffic that we're looking through would be considered malicious on any normal network, but for here, because you guys are who you are, it is normal. And so our task is to find out what isn't normal inside of that. And so it's an interesting challenge, so we're thankful for having those partners in there.
Hey. So these are guys and gals that keep it running on the partner side. These are the team leads that we work with to plan each of these events. They get their side coordinated, make sure that they have everybody. But these are all the special peeps that we have not given a specific shout out to before and figured we should start doing that. So thank you.
Look at how cute Jonathan looks. He looks like a plushie.
I still want everybody to notice Jimmy's wallpaper, though, behind him.
Oh, there's the dinosaur wallpaper. Yeah.
All right, so the architecture. Now all the real phones, everybody starts taking pictures usually. So we live by KISS theory, keep it simple, stupid, because we are stupid, so we need to keep it really simple. If you have been here before, this is gonna look somewhat similar. For the most part, we have kept it as simple as possible. So we've got an Arista switch at the top end that is our internet edge, breaking that out to our HA firewalls. That's done to the 600 meg link that we have out to the internet here. That is, just for information, our smallest WAN pipe that we have at all of the 3 shows. We have 2 10 gig circuits in Vegas, it's wild. Below that, we have our HA Palo Alto firewalls. It looks like some of those lines didn't draw in colors. Who did that? Your core switches below that. And then we have a TAP-AG switch from Arista below that we feed all of our tools. We collect all of the data that traverses this network. It is stored, every packet is stored for the entirety of the show, and then we wipe all of that data at the end of this show. You can see the amount of gear that everybody brings here on the side, and I would also point out that a lot of this, everybody's contracted, right, to bring what they're supposed to bring, but everybody brings a lot more than that, and it's really turned into quite the collaboration. There have been things that have been integrated into these tools. There have been feature sets that have been added to tools because of the things that we see here at Black Hat and the things that we do between all of those partners. But we go from that TAP-AG. Here we actually don't rip out all the switches. It is one of the few places in Vegas we own all the infrastructure at that point. We do use Excel's infrastructure for the basically room to room and the 2-mile runs that we have across the building as well. That goes down.
It's a big building. And they were like, this building isn't big enough. Let's make it bigger.
So then you go down to our access switches. Again, pretty basic there, but then we feed all of the wireless access points that you see around the venue, giving you Wi-Fi. This one is a bit of a eye chart, but the reason that we really want to point this out, this is the integrations that we have between all the partners. So I will get into a few things here in a second on some of the details. When we get into the evolution, we talk about kind of how the NOC has evolved, what we've done, what we've added, the integrations and that kind of thing. But we have come a long way and we're really excited what that is. But again, just to kind of demonstrate the amount of actual integration and cooperation between these guys that hate each other any other time of the year is really amazing. So won't dig into all the depth here, but the integrations, the amount of data enrichment that we have flying across the network between all of these partners is genuinely awesome.
Yeah, it's cool though as well to watch, like Bart mentioned, some of them are competitors and they have competing products and that kind of thing, but when they're sitting down in the NOC, they're working side by side and they'll look over at how their integration takes place and how data is passed to each other or what it looks like when it gets to the other side, and they'll be like, ooh, is that what that looks like? We will fix that. And then by the next show, to their credit, it will be better. So they get to see how their products or devices integrate with other products and devices. They might not see that in a real world environment and what it looks like, and they get to improve their stuff by having that experience. So, we have all that stuff on there, but in reality, this is what actually the architecture looks like, and this is building out
Just watch the mess that begins to grow those tables.
Please don't.
Would not be a data center that you would want to be in. But when it stands up for 4, 5, 6 days, it is what it is, right? But it takes a lot of work. We're here for quite a while, and there is a lot of free work as well. But you'll see. We're just gonna all watch it together and stare now.
Yeah, we what we learned was that so we were trying to cool this room down. And it's a smaller room. We wanted it to be small so that we could control the temperature in it. And it turns out that the air conditioning unit in that room, we were saying like, it keeps getting hot, it's too hot. And the venue was like, we've got it cranked all the way down. And it is the only room that in this entire, we just talked about this freaking building that has 2 train stops, it's so big. It's the only room in the entire facility that has its own climate. Like they can't change from anywhere else but that room. And it broke.
We froze it.
And so they were like, oh, we're going to have to like get a tech to a technician flew in. They were like, he's landed in the UK. We're like, what? Okay. But they ended up having to punch out ceiling tile so that the heat could escape into the rafters because it was just getting too hot in there. Something that we also do that we realize we never, where we're really bad at promoting is that we have a Twitch stream that's live the entire time we're on site at any of the Black Hat shows. So if you want to watch a bunch of nerds in a fishbowl, please join us in there. And you can see we like this quote on the side there from the chat in Twitch while people were watching us, you know. What are they doing in that room? And it's like, how did that guy find us? One. But then he's like, what are they doing in that room? Their best. Their best of what? Cyber. And I think that really sums it up. That's the NOC in a nutshell. So yeah, if you want to watch us in Asia or at the US show and you're not able to make it out, there's the link to Twitch down there at the bottom of where we're at. And you can...
Runs overnight too. So I mean, if you want to watch real creepy and make sure nobody breaks in for us,
yeah,
let us know if they do.
That's fun. And when I wake up in the morning, I'll check it and be like, who's there first? I'm like, oh, I should get there. If there's like 1 or 2 people in there, I know I don't have to hurry. But if there's more, I better get moving. So we have a bunch of shiny things that are in the NOC. If you came in and walked through, there's a bunch of dashboards that are in there. They're not just garbage things that are there for marketing, whatever. We actually get a significant amount of information out of them. They look very shiny, but they're actually useful to us. And I don't know if that's because dashboards as a whole have gotten better throughout the industry, or we're just getting old and more manager type, and we like pretty colors.
That worries me.
Yeah. Good.
We got some stats here that we'll talk about and a few things. We talked about some other things that, again, people bring and partners bring. Here in the bottom right is actually Thousand Eyes that Cisco brings that's been useful. We have some agents deployed around laptops, a couple of Raspberry Pis. Some of those are us. Others may not be. Be careful. But it will actually check connectivity for us through different areas of the venue, whether it's through wireless, through wired connection. We can go back and see those reports. We have some stats up here in the top left from MDM. What did we have? 4,500 submissions to ThreatGrid. There's all kinds of information here that we do look at. We detonate samples. We can play with those. We can see what we're doing here. But this is useful information that we dig into and just one piece.
He mentioned the Thousand Eyes sensors and like being out in different places, and they are just like boxes that are. And we did have, I think, the credit to the trainers and like the AV folks that are here at the ETS and stuff. They'll like come to us and be like, "Hey, there's a Raspberry Pi underneath the stage in this room over here, and like you guys should check this out." And we're like, "Oh, it's us," but thank you. We appreciate you like watching.
Called them out. Some
everybody's on high alert. Right?
That now they start to help.
But yeah, so again, more dashboards, more things that we're looking at as far as this one on the bottom right here is telling us physically in what location different devices, the mobile device management is on, and it allows us to just know like where in the venue they are. You'll notice that some of them seem to have migrated to the Aloft like hotel, like so somebody just like put their lead retrieval device in their pocket and took it back to their room with them. But you know, it is shiny. But it tells us like, hey, you know, some things have wandered off. In Vegas, that's really interesting because every once in a while, one of them is like at a completely different hotel down the street. So you see some applications on the right. You can read through those real quick. I'll talk about DNS requests. So it looks like we're a whole lot more than we normally have. One thing that may contribute to that is we actually redirect all DNS requests now. So if you send a DNS request and it's not to our DNS
we will redirect it to ours. So we'll see all that data. We'll see that in Umbrella. We had not done that in the past. If you had anything hard-coded that was Google DNS, well, at this show specifically, but that may contribute somewhat to seeing that rise, but it is definitely a rise in the amount of traffic. You can see the dip in there in 2021. We don't count COVID, but you can see a pretty steady climb up till then. We'll talk on some of these apps. You want to see? You want to say it? You want to talk about it?
I mean, they can read. I mean, I can call it out. Look, OnlyFans is the winner this year. I don't. Gross. I mean, you're on the Black Hat Network. Like, what are you like doing? You're in a training class, and you're like, I just got to check in on this.
Tinder ain't changed though.
No. Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, yeah. So again, just we're going to get into stats, things. When we get feedback from these things, people are always like, give us more stats. What are you guys seeing? What kind of stuff? So for this show, 2,222 unique clients. I love that. And our average throughput, 200 megabits at any given time on average, but then we had spikes to 600, which, as Bart mentioned, is actually the max for this show, which means we're gonna have to push harder for more bandwidth next year.
More bandwidth.
Because we do want to make sure that even when there are spikes, that there's plenty to go around. We don't have, for whatever reason, this show we just don't get enough bandwidth for, but the other shows we have more than we can possibly use. Let's see, I can't read the stats.
Because we have bandwidth partners at the other shows. We pay for it here.
Oh yeah, so data transfer, so yeah, we do. I guess that's probably legitimately, that's the truth, is that at the show in Singapore, we have a partner, and again, partners they give us stuff, and we love it. And they give us bandwidth for Singapore. It's not as much as Las Vegas, where Bart mentioned earlier, we get 2 10-gig pipes there, and we get it for free. And I mentioned, my involvement with DEF CON, and I know how much we pay at DEF CON for the bandwidth that DEF CON has, and it's so if we actually paid for that 10 gig, forget it.
Yeah. Forget about it.
Yeah, it's insane. So 13.4 terabytes worth of data transferred over the course of the show. So it's not too shabby, and with a pipe like that, that's all right. But yeah, I think for I can't even read that. Sorry.
I had to do it too.
Yeah, I know. Look, I look like a '90s rapper down here. It's like, sup. I'm a ransomware operator. If I was wearing Adidas tracksuit, maybe then I would be. But yeah, so again, so significant amounts of traffic get transferred here, but it doesn't even touch what we do at some of the other shows, just based on the fact that the pipe is there. And once people discover that they can use that pipe, then they just start hammering it. Sometimes you'll see folks who will just basically peg things out, and we don't, unless there's a problem, we won't limit you on the bandwidth that you use. So you still got a couple hours to go. How about it?
More stats. So down at the bottom right is the different types of threats that we saw in that sense. Again, I have to go look. So we've got malware, C2, phishing, dynamic DNS, newly registered domains. So obviously we see some of that in training classrooms and different things like that. Some of it may absolutely be malicious, but those are your site stats in the bottom right for your DNS. And then we have all of our total devices here in the top left that you see. Stop. Now we're going to be 2 wrappers. 113 different IoT devices, and then 9 of those that were vulnerable to date. So vulnerabilities, there are a lot of things you'll see here in a second that we do not block. There you go. Talk about it.
Sure. So looking at this network, I mentioned that this environment, in a normal environment, this type of traffic would be horrifying. But the reality is, even with 8.7 thousand severe threats detected over this week, right? Like, so this is, in a normal environment, these would have been considered severe threats. We only blocked 208 of them. And so the reason that we only blocked 208 of them is because even though they appear to be severe threats, for this environment, it could be somebody doing a demo, they're doing a lab in a classroom, they're showing their friends something in the hallway. And so we have to go in and vet those things out. So we're not the person who causes somebody's demonstration, either down in Arsenal, on the expo floor, or again, just in the hallway. to not work. They're like, I swear this worked when I did this back in my hotel room, but we're over there blocking everything. It just doesn't work for us. So that gives you kind of an idea of how little actually gets blocked in this environment. Unless we can determine that, yes, this is genuinely malicious, then we just let it fly. So. We have alerts by rooms. Obviously the rooms are carved up, subnet wise. We know like, okay, this is this room, this classroom's doing this, that, or whatever. And it was like, all right, well, some classrooms appear more malicious than others. And that's just the nature of the class, right? And so we always like to see like, oh, who is it? Who is the biggest offenders? And often, sometimes it's a repeat. This bottom here is the like AI or language learning models that folks are accessing. What's interesting is this one is Notion AI is actually shows up more than ChatGPT on here, and we just thought, well, that's interesting. But yeah, so folks are using it quite a bit in training classes and whatever. That's mostly where we see some of the most interesting traffic. There's actually less traffic that traverses this network during the briefings. I think people just show, even though there are more people show up and they're like, I'm not getting on that network. It's okay to get on the network. Honestly, the way that we're doing things, if you get on the network and you're already compromised, we're likely going to let you know. So
we'll show you some of that.
We like to think that, yeah, folks will actually leave safer than when they arrived. I will go through this quickly.
Yeah, we got to fly through this. So the evolution of the NOC, we talked about the NOC. We call it a NOC because our biggest and number one priority is stability. Back in the day, we used to have a wireless hacking class, bear with me as I go quick, that would hack the class next to them to test their stuff out. They couldn't do their labs. That was a problem. The bigger issue now, today, is that we have classes that run their labs in the cloud. So if you don't have access to the internet, you can't do your class that your company paid thousands of dollars for, and we have upset people. So stability is number one. Security, obviously, from there. Registration is our crown jewels. Our data is in there as well as yours. We don't want anyone to have that, so we monitor that pretty tight. Segmentation, keeping everyone away from each other. Hunting, making sure that we can see what happens. And this has all kind of gone over time. But the reason I'm trying to get through this really quick is we've gotten to automation, and this has really kind of grown for us. So you can skip past and understand kind of malware sandboxing. I got some notes here to make sure, so tell you about the evolution. So we've done a whole lot more work this show actually on getting some of the automation integrated in the things that we're doing there, and kind of wanted to touch on that because it actually is really cool, and I feel like we're a little bit past even where some of those internal SOCs may be at different companies. So we are working with Palo Alto XSOAR, and we are doing a whole lot to try and pull out and automate what we do, digging through this data to ensure that you're safe and that our data is safe. Some of those things, and we've got about 3 phases here that we've ran through with XSOAR, and we have probably 4 more to get to where we kind of want to be. So number one, we started off with a Slack integration. We can go into a Slack channel, we can look up any IP or IOC based on the traffic that we've seen on that network. We can ask the bot that goes to XSOAR, pulls that information, and we can quickly find that information just through Slack. From there, we have intelligence enrichment. So from all of our threat intelligence that you saw, from all of the tools that we have, we pull that in, we can gather that information, and then from there, we will enrich it with the internal contextual information. So if we see an IP address that had an issue, we will pull the information to know what AP it's on, so we know where they're at. We know exactly what else they've done. We'll pull information from Arista, see what traffic we've seen or where they've been. We'll pull traffic from NetWitness and Palo Alto, see if anything's been blocked, what threats we may have, and we pull all that data from everybody from there. And then the next piece that's really kind of cool, so in Las Vegas, it's a little bit harder for us than it is in these events, the regional events, to really track down and run through some of these because there's 25,000 people compared to 4,000 people, right? So obviously that grows for us. So the next piece that we're really getting into is declaration of security events. Incident is a pretty strong word. We won't necessarily go there. But basically through Slack, we can pull all that information, create an incident based off of the data that we have. XSOAR will pull all that enrichment, create another channel, pull the people that have been talking about that in that thread into that channel with that enrichment data, and we can go from there and use it as a ticketing system, if you will. So the automation pieces that we've got to are really kind of cool, and I'm excited about where we're going with that. But that is a big piece of kind of the current evolution, if you will.
Yeah, you'll notice that, good job, bravo. You'll notice that he didn't say like it just does it, right? It said it collected data and put it into a place where everybody who was involved in that investigation could get in there and discuss it and decide what to do from that point, right? Often when you're wandering around on expo floors, like places, conference like this or RSA or whatever, then people will just tell you that automation is going to solve everything and you're going to just, it'll be fine, security will get automated. It's just not a thing, right? What we're looking for is trying to save time collecting things and collecting the right people so that we can spend time working on the actionable,
presenting them the information they need to look at the issue that we have.
Right, 100%. So the way that we're using automation is to do just that, is to help us investigate and spend time investigating things that actually matter instead of wasting our time just trying to pull resources together. So it's been really nice. It is something that just as things scale, as we're dealing with more events, with more data, all those things, we need it. And we've lived it to see how useful it actually is when you deploy it out in the field. So.
Woo. Is this one me?
This is you.
So sometimes a fish is just a fish. So when we dig in here, we saw a few things. We're going to talk about a couple of stories, some of the things that we saw now and what this looks like. So this is just kind of how we do some of those investigations now. So as we dig through, we can see a whole bunch of traffic that was going to a one password with a B. So as opposed to one password. Obviously, it looks like some sort of phishing site, so we actually dug into that a little bit. We saw that there was a whole bunch of other data being sent to that, and then we found the IPs that were actually, well, you can see over here on the right, that was a phishing site, so that one it was intended to look like one password to try and get someone to enter their credentials. We fleshed out a little bit here from what the other sites that were associated with that were, and there was other phishing sites, as you can see. All in all, we dug through, we found that those were genuine phishing sites. However, they were being used by someone down in a lab on the expo hall. So this was someone, the exact scenario that we're talking about, where any other place, these are absolutely phishing sites. We have traffic going to these phishing sites. It would be blocked instantly in any other environment. If we would have blocked that, we would have had somebody from the expo hall coming and yelling at us because this was working 5 seconds ago and now it's not, right? And it's someone showing their tool, showing their product and trying to help others, and we would have absolutely destroyed that. So the needle in a needle stack is certainly a little cliche, it feels like at this point, but it's real, right? We're looking at these things that would be awful in any other situation, but it's the good bad versus the bad bad is what we say too. So this was good bad, we were okay with it, but we have to go find that information and get context around who's doing what to make sure whether it's bad bad or good bad.
I like that the vendor down there was like, I'm going to use actual malicious phishing sites as part of my demo. Not set up a lab and then demonstrate something, but they were like, well, Threat Intel says that this is actually a thing, so let's just use that. They already set it up for us. But yeah, so. All right, so again, he mentioned it, needle in a needle stack, right? They're going to put that on my tombstone. But again, when we're trying to find something, we're trying to find the bad within the bad, what we're talking about when and this is any threat hunting. Like if you've done any threat hunting or you're thinking about doing threat hunting is a game of outliers, right? And so when we're trying to find outliers, how do we do that? Well, the guys at Corelight were like, hey, why don't we take all these Suricata alerts and we're going to graph them essentially based on IP address, and we'll see if it doesn't matter, because what we normally do, or in the past what we've done, is we'll say, hey, we saw this type of activity coming from classroom XYZ. Is that type of behavior something that might be normal for that class? And then we manually would go in there and say, like, okay, well, it's this type of classroom. We can assume this type of attack. No, I don't think that that's something that would normally be part of the class. Let's dig in further in the investigation. And so these guys were like, that's too much work. And so they were like, let's take all the Suricata alerts and we'll graph them out. And anything that is clustered there is where everybody in the class was communicating to something malicious, or malicious behavior was coming from, an image on the device or doing whatever. There was something on there that alerted as malicious. But if everybody in the entire class is doing it, the assumption is that's part of the class. Now, the little guy up in the corner or this guy over here, what's that, right? Well, that allowed us to just say, if we got an alert and it doesn't fall in this cluster over here, that is an outlier. We can see it now, literally see it. Let's go take a look at what that is. And it allowed us to spend time investigating things that were more likely to be malicious, right? And not all cases were they, but they were more likely to be because it was only one person in a class doing something. And so, again, that's what we're trying to do here, right? Now we will do this from show to show from now on because it will allow us to go find that needle in a needle stack. So super useful and really easy to just look at it and say, this is what we have to do. And they decided to implement it using some machine learning. It ran every hour. It was like, okay, here's the outliers, and then we could hunt and hunt and hunt.
And just to point to that again, these are all suricata alerts. These are bad. These are all bad. Everyone's bad. Just, are we in the same bad or are we in bad, right? So again, everybody's doing something that's bad, but we have to try and visualize good, bad versus bad.
So hopefully, so that's the kind of stuff that we're doing in the NOC and trying to get better and trying to make, improve things and find more interesting stuff.
So that we have to do less.
So that we have to do less. We already do less. Like we're like managers.
You're running out of time already. All right, another quick one to show an example of kind of how what we see, what we let fly from the good, bad, the bad, bad, and how we have to determine that. So some interesting stuff that we started getting alerts in Umbrella. There was a classroom. It all had hamster domains. So we actually dig through and they search for hamster to see what had been hit through that. And as you can see, we see at the bottom there was a random domain that was hamster.victim.cloud, which was actually a classroom's lab. Then right above that, we let all those fly. And then right above that, there was a whole bunch of traffic to xhamster. So those are a little bit different, but they both traverse this network, right? So in finding really weird domains and digging into things, we see that someone is actually compromised as well. So we see somebody else that was compromised and sending a whole bunch of data out to these other hamster websites that it was actually malicious. And we have to dig through that. So again, just trying to show the example here that there is porn, there is labs, and there is someone infected, and they're all hamsters. So we had to let someone know. And as you can see on the bottom right, we haven't really touched on this yet, but this is part of us, again, trying to let you leave safer and give you more information. We have a number of scenarios that we will offer you a captive portal. So during briefings, we don't know where you are. We can't walk into a classroom and say, hey, you've been owned. We're seeing a whole bunch of C2 traffic come out of your machine. You should probably clean that up just to make you aware. But what we will do during briefings and the other types that we may not be able to track you down is actually present a captive portal, so that you can see, hey, this is the Black Hat NOC. We saw some interesting traffic, crypto mining, clear text authentication, malware, C2. What am I missing, Jimmy?
Malware.
Captive portals that make sure that we, malware, crypto mining, yeah. So we will present you these captive portals.
It's still illegal.
It is still illegal, obviously, whether you're here,
That's
whether you're attacking other people.
That's true.
There's lots of stories.
We did only do captive portals for crypto mining, clear text credentials, and C2, but then every once in a while.
We'll handcraft one for some.
Yeah, every once in a while we have to say, here's a captive portal that says, the activity that you're doing is still illegal, even at Black Hat, right? Like, and what I mean by that is that folks will learn something in a class or they'll acquire some new tools and they will immediately point those at the public internet. At one time, somebody learned something at a US show and they took the applications and just started hammering what turned out to be the police precinct in their hometown. And we're like, really? Like, straight for the cops, right? Like, so, So every once in a while we do have to handcraft something, but for the most part, those other three categories are the ones we send things through with automation. So this one was really interesting, and there is a lesson to be learned here. This was what we were seeing was that it was, again, the Corelight guys were the ones who discovered this while hunting through some stuff. They started to see a bunch of traffic that was in the clear in an area that it shouldn't have essentially human readable text. They should not have been able to find regular, English language in there. And they were like, well, that's interesting. Let's dig into that. And in reality, what was discovered was that this application, and it's not limited to this specific application, but this application was using Google Translate to translate a portion of the conversation that was happening between a user and the user on the other end. And that And by using that extension, that translation extension, it took what should have been an end-to-end encrypted conversation and put it in the clear. So they think they're using a secure application. They believe their conversation is encrypted end-to-end. But because of an extension that's being used in order to make a translation happen through that application, everything ended up in the clear. So this is why we say, and you'll hear us say this from the stage in the past, and we'll say it again, I'm sure, if you don't look at the wire, you don't know what your applications are doing. If you're a developer and you decide to use a third-party extension or some other person's code for something, whatever, you have to look and see what that does. How does that change the function of what you created? Because now this is insecure when the application itself was designed to be anything but that.
And it's a very well-known messaging application that's supposed to be end-to-end encrypted. We're not trying to blast them because it doesn't seem like it's their fault, but it is one of those things. I mean, there's the trust but verify, and Jessica no longer tells us that that's the case. Never verify or never trust, always verify. So be careful. Stay safe out there.
Yeah. So.
Living in Synology. So a lot of people have Synologies. We've seen this before. If this is your picture, hi. So this is one of those things, again, just make sure and take care of things. So this is a pretty simple application through Synology that uploads pictures, saves them in their cloud on your storage.
Real quick, if you're not familiar with what Synology is, it's a home NAS. Like you can set up a NAS at your house, storage solution. All right, so go ahead.
There is a box that says encrypt. We all know, because we've seen this before, the port 5000 is the unencrypted version of Synology. So if you've not encrypted it and told it to be encrypted, it is not. So if you have that application installed and you're telling it to upload all of your pictures and you have geolocation enabled on those pictures, we see your pictures, we see your home Synology, and we see where you are right now. So, hey, verify that. And it looked like you had a good drink that night. So,
yeah. And again, this is a situation where it is literally a checkbox where it says, would you like to use a Let's Encrypt certificate to encrypt the traffic? And all you have to do is click that box, and everything is now encrypted from that point. I don't know why that's not done by default, but here we are.
So if you have a Synology, go check that.
Yeah, go check your box. And that is what we have for you. This show, we have 2.5 minutes for questions. That's not very low. Whoa.
Woo. We try to leave time for questions. You guys always have some and all come up. So let's ask here. Don't be afraid. 2.5 minutes.
You can also yell it out, and I'll repeat it if you don't want to walk to the microphone, because I know that will stop people from getting up there as well. So,
anyone?
Questions? Now one.
You guys are the best.
Let's just, stand here for 2 minutes and 5 seconds.
I'm okay with that. I love awkward.